Hi, it's Kim from the Shamrock Quilt Studio, and I've got a brief update today on our EPP project. So join me as we talk about that. And in the meantime, I'm just going to clean up this residue from working on our block of the month, and we might get a little sneak peek on that too. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the Shamrock Quilt Studio. Hi, thanks for joining me, and we're going to talk about EPP, but before we get started, I just wanted to let you know I've been working on our block of the month, and I've got some supplies out and some fabrics, and I started working on this, and it's going to be, the star is going to play a role in our design this month for the July block, and I was working on doing it with my EPP special process, and the more I worked on it, the more difficult it got. So I kind of stopped and changed gears, and I just wanted to take a moment to tell you that sometimes that's what happens. We start working on something and we realize that there's either got to be a better way to do it, or it's not worth doing it the way we're doing it. I know in some aspect of your life you've faced that before. So I stopped, and I had the opportunity to do a little traveling the last couple of days, and all that time in the car got me thinking about how we could do this particular process for the block of the month, for the month of July. And I came up with another idea. I came home yesterday, and probably within about 10 or 15 minutes of sitting down, I had that section of the quilt block done. So I'm very happy with that, and I'll be very excited to share that with you next week. But now let's talk about EPP. Let me move this out of the way. Oh, it's my light box, so I don't want to just drop it too hard. Okay, so when I was traveling this past weekend, or actually it was last week, I took my EPP with me, and I took all of it. I took all of the pieces, I took my little scissors and my thread, and I had a little piece of, I guess it's almost like batting or something that you might use for upholstery. So it's not quite as puffy as batting, but it's the same kind of thing. That I had my needles in, all my pieces, and I was working on this. I was working on it in the car, I was working on it at the hotel. While I was waiting on my husband to finish up what he was doing, I was working on it. It just went everywhere with me, I think except to dinner. And I wasn't working on it while I slept, but I had a lot of time to work on it. And I'm very happy with the way this is looking. Now, while I was gone, I was able to complete the circle. And let me tell you what I've done. I added these pieces here. I think you saw that the last time we looked at this. And I also added the little two-piece of the pattern all the way around. So then last night I started thinking about how we were going to grow it, and that idea of interspersing all the fabrics in. So I decided, let's make sure this is on camera, let's turn it this way, that the next design point was going to be a three-piece unit that is in the shape of a V. And we're going to be adding those at the intersecting point of the contrasting fabric here. So every place we've got the single light green, we're going to put the three-piece pink, and vice versa. And we're going to do this all the way around the quilt, and then at that point we're going to go back in and add in the white pieces to bring us at least up to here, probably up to this point, because we need more white in this quilt so it doesn't become overwhelming with the design. The other thing I think I'm going to do is, if I can put my hands on my crochet hook, and I don't know if it's still in here or not. Oh, there it is. Let's take out another row of these papers. Remember, we took out the papers here on this green, and now we're going to take out the papers on the next row. And I'm not really pulling these so much as I'm just sticking it in there, and then that side here where we've got the more broad angle, we're just going to pull it out there. And it goes really fast. You could actually even do it faster than I'm doing it. But I do reuse my papers. Sometimes I reuse them many times. So I do like to be careful with them. Now I'll tell you this one, because it's been kind of loosely folded a lot in the last week, some of the edges are a little curled. And probably what I will do before I do any more sewing is stick it on the ironing board and press it one more time. And then that will help those pieces acclimate back to a flat shape. And it will help these pieces in the middle kind of take on the shape that they will eventually have once we take these papers out. Okay, we're just, I think that might be the last one. Okay, so there we go. Now we've got this row out and this row out. We still have a little bit of puckering. I'm not gonna lie to you. But if we soften it a bit, I think it's going to be fine. And I think we're going to continue to see that, because as we move around, we're going to be putting more and more papers in there, and that will continue to stretch it out. And then when we let those papers out, then it begins to kind of relax. And I think we'll see that once it's pressed, it'll lay flatter. So that's where we are with our EPP top. I am very happy with it so far. We have not gotten into using any of the darker colors yet, but those are going to be further out. And they're going to come in small quantities like these did, where there were just one and now there's three, or there's really just one here and then they come into pairs. We're just going to start interspersing those in and come up with a design as we grow this ring by ring. Now, as far as the finished size of this, the bigger it gets, the harder it's going to be to work on, because it's difficult even now because of the shapes. I find that, like I said before, this is the most difficult EPP I've worked on yet because of that shape. You have to be very careful with how you're sewing them together. And I will report back that putting one piece on at a time has really, really made it much easier to match those seams up appropriately. Putting two on at a time was too much. Now the only thing I will say is when I did these, I put all three together, and then when I sewed it on, I was only sewing essentially one on there. And then when I do all the ones around it, I will only do one. And you can see that particular piece right there, how it's curling under. When I press it, I'll press it this side and the other side, and I think it will lay flat. It'll give it just a tad of steam, not overly steam because you don't want to disintegrate your papers, but that little bit of steam will really set the shape and the folds of the EPP. Okay, so I think that kind of catches you up to date with what's going on with this. A little tiny hint and preview of our block of the month that's coming next week. And I'm off to sew some more. I've got many projects going, and I'm just going to keep right on keeping on. We'll see you next week at the Shamrock Quilt Studio, and in the meantime, give us a thumbs up if you like this video. Be sure to subscribe if you have not already, and invite a friend. We're having fun. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.